Hi, welcome. This is the responsive navigation tutorial. And what we're going to do in this tutorial is we're going to take this FlexNav and we're going to integrate it into our responsive web design. So remember when you're using a jQuery plugin like this that to integrate it basically takes 3 steps. You need to add the HTML to your file. You need to add links to a CSS file, and you also need to add your JavaScript. So for this example, we're going to use this FlexNav that is located here. And the files for this FlexNav are on GitHub. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this link on this web page, and I'll include the web page in the notes accompanying this video. So if I click on GitHub, I can download a zip file of all of the files necessary for this flexible navigation. So I've already gone ahead and done that. So I clicked on the zip file and I have it on my desktop. So it's called FlexNav Master Zip. I'm going to go ahead and open up that zip file. And inside of that file, that folder, are the files that I need to build this. There is a HTML file. There is an images folder with an arrow that I'm going to be using in this navigation. And there's a CSS folder with a CSS file called FlexNav. And there is a JavaScript folder with 2 JS files that I'm also going to be using for this. Okay? So I am going to use my files, use my the web page that I have built that is already responsive. So I've added media queries already to this particular page. And I have my file, my folder structure set up. So I've got my images folder with all my images. I have my CSS folder with my reset and my style.css. And if I go ahead and open up this page for you and we view it, we'll see that this little prototype is already, I've added the media queries, so I've set some breakpoints for this. So what I want to do right now is use this responsive navigation in my project. So my process here will be to take the, let's go back to the desktop, take my FlexNav master folder. I'm going to open up this index.html page located in those files that I downloaded from GitHub, and I'm going to open this up for you. Oops. Okay, so let's go ahead and preview it. All right, so these are the navs from the author of the plugin. So my strategy here is to integrate this. Well, first of all, I'm going to style it how I want it to basically look, and then I'm going to integrate it into my web page that I've added my media queries. So I'm going to add it to the web page that's already responsive design. But I think it's smart to do some of your modification to this file and then integrate it. So it's just sort of easier to troubleshoot it at this stage. So what we're going to be able to do is I'm going to remove things like this FlexNav, and I can remove all of this from this example file. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the HTML here to reflect the navigation for my site. Okay, so I've got this index.html file open, and remember I got this from the, just go back to the desktop. I got this from those files that I've downloaded from GitHub. Okay, so I just opened up this index.html file. And what I'm going to do here is first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save a copy of this. Okay, and the reason that well, you've got your zip file. Make sure you keep that because I'm going to be altering the files in this folder, and just in case something goes awry, I want to be able to go back and have an original copy of all of these files. So just make sure you keep that zip file. Okay, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to take some code out. I'm going to take out this H1 tag with the title that says FlexNav because I don't need it. Okay, and then I'm also going to take out all of this other content because again I don't need that. I just want the nav. So if we look at our code here, I'm going to be keeping this container. I'm going to be keeping this div class menu button, and then I'm going to be keeping the everything between the nav tag. So the rest of this I'm going to delete. The only other thing I'm going to keep is I do need this script. So I'm going to make sure that this is still in my file. Okay, and we're going to see how we can integrate that a little bit later. Okay, so I've taken all that out, and that leaves me with my menu. And I'm going to go ahead and preview this and just make sure I haven't taken out anything that I need. Okay, that's always helpful. Make sure you test, make sure you haven't deleted something important. So I've got everything I need. That's great. So that's the first step. The second thing is I'm going to go ahead and change the navigation to reflect the navigation for my site. And I'll show you the file that I will eventually end up with to show you what my navigation is going to look like after this tutorial. So notice that I've got navigation for my Alima cosmetics site, and so I want to change the text in my sample file. So instead of saying, you know, nav 1, 2, 3, that I've got face, cheeks, eyes, lips, and the sub navigation. Okay, and that all gets changed in your HTML. So that's going to get changed right here. So rather than it saying item 1, item 2, item 3, etc., I'm going to change it to my navigation. So this is just a process of going in here and changing the main navigation text and the sub navigation text. Okay, and what I'm going to do just to speed things up here is I'm just going to cut and paste it from my final file, but you guys will have to go in there and actually change it. Okay, so let me just copy this into our file. Okay, and again, I'm going to test it, make sure I didn't delete anything. So now instead of it saying item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I've got my text for my navigation in there. But notice it's breaking into 2 lines. I'm going to fix that. I'll be able to fix that in the CSS. Okay, so once I've done that, my next step will be to change these widths. I changed the original navigation. It had, in the sample file, it had 5 sections, but notice that I have 7 sections. So I have to change the CSS. So I'm going to go to the flexnav.css in my sample file here that I'm working on. And if we scroll down, we will see that there is a CSS rule here. Let me just find it. There it is. It says role equals navigation LI, where the width is specified. And right now it's 20% because in the sample file there were 5 navigational menu items, so 100% divided by 5 is 20%. But I have 7 items now, so if I take 100 and I divide that by 7, I actually get something around 14%. Let me just check my numbers. So 100 divided by 7 equals 14.28. Let me just actually copy this so I'll get it very exact here. Oops. So it's 14.28571, etc. Okay. So now it will divide my navigation so that all 7 items show up horizontally. Okay. So I needed to change the width, and I have done that. Okay, next thing I want to do is I want to change the colors, because the color for my navigation is all white with black text. And we kind of have the reverse right here. So I need to go into the CSS and change the color. So again, I'm in my flexnav.css. And what I'm going to do is, if we look through the CSS, we can see there are a lot of instances where the background color and borders are colors like pound 333, pound 222, pound DDD. There's even some pound 000. These are all shades of either black or dark gray. And so I want to change these to white. So I'm going to change them to pound FFF. So let's go ahead and do that. So and notice I'm basically focusing on the ones that say background color or that say border. So I'm going to change this first one. And here's another one where it says background 000, which is black. I'm going to change that. Here's another background color 333. And what I suggest that you guys do is to do it in, sets of 3 or 4, and then check your page. Just make sure you're not removing anything, that you actually need. So let's see. I'm going to go in here. And let's change this one. Okay, so let's see where we're at now. Okay, so we're getting there. But we still have some dark gray and black. So let me keep going. So here's some more borders that are dark gray. Another one. Let me remove that. Okay, here's another background color. It's dark gray, black border. And on the very bottom, there are some additional black borders. Obviously, if you want to keep borders on your styling for your responsive navigation, you'll need to change yours accordingly. But I want mine to be white with black text. So now I've got pretty much like all white on white. So the next step, I removed or changed the background colors from black and dark gray to white, and now I want to change the color of my text from white to black. So I'm going to go in any place where my text is white, which is basically something close to FFF. I'm going to change it to black. Okay, so I have that here. I have one right here. And I think I might have one other. Let me just check. Here's one that's DDD, which is a light gray. I want that to be black. And let's see. Maybe I got them all. Let's check. I did. Okay, awesome. So now I've got a white menu and my text is black. Okay, so that's what you'll need to do in order to style yours. So it's going into the background colors, the borders, and the color. So remember, color is the color for the font, for the text. Background color is the color of the menu itself. And then there's our borders that are part of the original design. Okay, so, and I've checked it, make sure it works as, so it's still responsive. I haven't broken anything, which is great. Okay, so now that I have changed my color and I've tested it, now I can integrate it into my page. Okay, so let's go back to the desktop. I've made a copy of my project where I've added my media queries. So I'm just going to call this Flex. I'm going to add FlexNav. So this is my media queries with my FlexNav. I'm going to integrate it into the project that I'm working on, the prototype. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Okay, and again, if we view this file, it's my prototype. It has navigation, but I want to add this responsive navigation into this prototype. Okay, so just make sure I'm working on the right file here. So here's the file that I'm working on. Right? Yes, awesome. Okay, just close this. Okay, so there's a few things I need to do. One is with my file organization. So let me show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to open up my FlexNav master. These are the files that I downloaded. I'm going to open up my folder that has my prototype that I'm working on. Okay, so side by side. And I'm going to copy this JavaScript folder over to my final web folder. Okay, so I'm just copying this over. Okay, so notice that that goes into my final web folder. And then I have a CSS file called FlexNav. I'm going to copy that over to my CSS folder. Okay, so now I have 3 CSS files. I have my reset style, and now I have the FlexNav. And then there's an image used in this menu that's called arrow down, and I'm going to copy that over to my images folder. Okay, so now that arrow is in my folder with my prototype that I'm working on. Okay, so I've copied those folders over to my prototype folder. Okay, so I've got everything there. Now, what I need to do is notice that in the sample that I'm working on, if we go up to the head of the file, there are links to the CSS file. So notice there's a link to the flexnav.css, and then there's a link to 2 JavaScript files. I want to add these links to the head of my file that I'm working on for my prototype, right? So I'm going to copy these, and let me make sure I get everything. Okay, and I'm going to paste it into the head of the file I'm working on. Okay, and I'm going to paste them after my reset.css and after my style.css. It actually is important that the CSS are in this order. Okay, so I'm going to just add a little space here so you can see. So I've added this link to my flexnav.css, the script, one of the scripts, JavaScript, and here's the second one. Okay. All right, fantastic. So now I need to add, one other thing I need to do before I forget is remember that we had this script, this JavaScript in the bottom of our page. We need that also. So I'm going to copy that. It's from our sample, and I'm going to paste that right before my closing body tag. Okay. All right. So let's just make sure we haven't. See where we're at. Okay, so nothing really looks like it's changed yet because we need to change the HTML. So I'm going to take the HTML that I worked on in this sample. Right, so I changed all this, and I am going to paste this in. So I need where it says div class menu and the nav, I'm going to copy all of that. So it ends with this closing nav tag. Okay, so everything starting with div class menu button and then ending with this closing nav tag. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it where my nav currently exists in my prototype page. So I'm going to just delete that and I'm going to paste in my new HTML. Okay? Let's see where we're at. I'm going to preview it. Okay, it's sort of there, but notice it's got some weird gray background. And the reason that this is happening is, remember that in our style.css we styled this, and so we need to go to our style.css. So in our prototype we need to go to our style.css and we need to remove all of the navigation CSS that we added, because it's competing, it's conflicting with the CSS in our FlexNav. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to delete all of this CSS that starts with nav. Okay. And so now if I preview my page, awesome, there we go. So now it isn't competing and it's keeping my styling of the all white with the black text. And let's try to see if it is still responsive, and it is. Okay, so that's still working also. Fantastic. So that's it. Please refer to, there'll be some notes along with this video, but just keep in mind there are basically 3 things that you need to do. You need to change the HTML, you need to make sure you've linked your CSS, and the same with your JavaScript. So good luck, and let me know if you have any questions.